Derek Mason grabbed the photograph from Jack's locker and ripped it in half. Lily's smiling face tore down the middle, her missing front tooth split between two pieces of glossy paper. Your kid tells everyone
What the hell are you doing?
Stop pipe burst, you
Derek
idiot!
laughed,
You're
holding
flooding the
pieces up to
place! Then
fluorescent
fix
light.
it!
A submarine welder, a legend. That's the funniest thing I've heard all year. Jack didn't move. His hands hung at his sides, scarred hands, burned hands, hands that had sealed hull breaches under 300 feet of water while ships burned around him. You're nothing but a mop guy, Brennan, and your daughter's a liar just like her old man. Something in Jack's eyes changed. Cold, controlled, dangerous. Tonight, 400 people would learn exactly who the mop guy really was. Derek let the torn pieces fall to the floor of the maintenance closet. Emma's face scattered across dirty tile, her smile, her missing front tooth, the picture Jack had taken on her first day of second grade at Jefferson Elementary. Pick it up. Jack's voice was quiet. Too quiet. Derek's smirk faltered. Something in those words made the air feel different, heavier. What did you say to me? I said pick it up. The two security guards behind Derek shifted uncomfortably. They'd never heard the janitor talk like this. The mop guy was supposed to be passive, quiet, broken. Derek stepped closer, got in Jack's face, close enough that Jack could smell the coffee on his breath, see the small scar above his left eyebrow. Or what, old man? You going to mop me to death? Jack didn't blink. I'm asking you nicely. One time. Pick up my daughter's picture. Derek laughed, looked back at his buddies, searching for approval, for confirmation that this was still funny. You hear this? The toilet cleaner thinks he's tough. He turned back to Jack. Jack moved. Not fast, not violent, just efficient. His hand caught Derek's wrist, twisted, a pressure point technique they'd taught him in the Navy back when he was learning to handle situations in tight spaces where a fight could rupture a hull or damage critical equipment. Derek's knees buckled. He gasped. His face went white as blood drained from his extremities. What the? Pick it up. Jack's voice hadn't changed. Still quiet, still controlled. But his grip tightened, finding the exact spot where tendon met bone, where a little pressure became agony. Derek whimpered. Okay, Jesus. Jack released him. Derek dropped to his knees, scrambling to gather the torn pieces. His hands were shaking. His buddies stood frozen, mouths open, probably reassessing every interaction they'd ever had with the quiet janitor who cleaned the 15th floor. I'm sorry, Derek stammered, pressing the pieces into Jack's palm. I didn't mean, get out. Derek ran. His guards followed. Their footsteps echoed down the corridor until they faded to nothing. Jack stood alone in the maintenance closet. He looked down at the pieces of Lily's photo in his hands, tried to fit them together. The tear ran right through her face, splitting her smile into two jagged halves. His jaw tightened. He'd promised himself he wouldn't do that anymore, wouldn't let the old Jack out, the one who'd survived things that would break most men, the one who'd buried that survival instinct under 2 years of mop water, and yes, sir, and swallowed pride. But Derek had touched Lily's picture. Some lines you don't cross. Jack taped the photo back together in the corner of the maintenance closet using clear tape from the supply shelf. The tear was still visible, a jagged line through his daughter's smile, but at least the pieces held. He placed it back in his locker, closed the door gently. His hands were shaking now, not from anger, from memory. The last time he'd felt that cold focus, he'd been underwater. 300 feet down. The USS Liberty was burning around him in Norfolk's dry dock, and 17 sailors and dockyard workers were already dead, and the breach was 40 feet wide, and everyone said it couldn't be sealed. Jack had sealed it anyway. 4 hours alone in the flooded compartments, welding blind, while the ship groaned and twisted and tried to die. When he'd surfaced, they'd called him a hero, given him medals, put his name in training manuals as the man who'd invented the Norfolk method, a heat sink technique for welding in environments no sane person would enter. Then they'd sent him back down, and back down, and back down again. Gulf of Mexico, 2007. Nuclear submarine with a coolant leak, radiation levels climbing the whole boat, 20 minutes from catastrophic failure. Jack went in. 4 hours in a contaminated compartment. 0 visibility, temperatures that melted his first 2 welding rigs before he jury-rigged a cooling system from parts he stripped off a backup generator. Atlantic Ocean off the Carolina coast, 2012. Crew trapped in a disabled submarine at 400 feet. Hull integrity failing. Jack descended in a deep-sea suit, patched the critical weak points while his air supply ran lower and lower, while his dive supervisor screamed at him to abort to surface to save himself. San Diego Naval Base, 2015. Aircraft carrier hit by a freak storm during maintenance. Emergency hull breach. Jack worked through the night in conditions that sent 3 other welders to the hospital with heat exhaustion and chemical burns. Every mission they said the same thing: impossible, can't be done. We need to evacuate and let her sink. Every mission Jack proved them wrong, until the day his hands started shaking, until his lungs couldn't take the pressure anymore, until the Navy doctors told him his diving days were over, that his body had given everything it had, that one more deep dive might kill him. 39 years old, honorable discharge, medical retirement, a chest full of medals, and a body that had paid the price for 2 decades of doing impossible things. Sarah had left 6 months after the discharge. "I didn't sign up for this." She'd said it while packing her bags, her voice flat, emotionless. "I married a hero, not a broken man who wakes up screaming every night." She'd taken the house in the divorce, the savings, everything except Lily. Lily she'd left behind. "She's too much like you." Sarah had said it at the door, car keys and hand lawyer's paperwork under her arm. "Stubborn, difficult. You two deserve each other." It was the only gift his ex-wife had ever given him. Jack's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, saw the voicemail notification from Jefferson Elementary. Pressed play. "Mr. Brennan, this is Principal Harrison. I need you to come in tomorrow for an urgent meeting. Lily was in another fight today. She punched a boy named Ethan Mitchell, broke his nose. She says he called her a liar about you being a Navy hero. I understand this is a sensitive topic, but we need to discuss Lily's behavior. This is the 3rd incident this month. Please call us back." Jack closed his eyes. Another fight. His little girl was fighting because kids called her a liar, because she told them the truth about her father, and nobody believed her. And she was right. Everything she'd told them was true. But how could they believe it? How could anyone believe that the quiet janitor who mopped floors at 2 in the morning was the same man who'd saved 293 people on a burning warship? Jack didn't look like a hero anymore. He looked like what he was, a 42-year-old single father with bad knees and damaged lungs, working a job that paid $12.50 an hour because nobody else would hire a broken veteran with PTSD and a 3-year gap in his resume. He dialed Lily's number. She picked up on the first ring. "Daddy." "Hey, baby girl, I heard about the fight." Silence on the line. Then small, "Are you mad?" "No, sweetheart, I'm not mad, but you can't go around punching people." "He said you were a liar." Jack's chest tightened. "He said janitors aren't heroes. He said I made everything up." Her voice cracked. She was crying now, trying to hide it, failing. "I told him about the submarine, Daddy, about the Liberty, about how you saved all those people at Norfolk." And he laughed. "He said his dad looked you up online and there's nothing about you anywhere. He said you're just a loser who cleans toilets." The words hit Jack like a physical blow. "I'm not a liar, Daddy. I'm not." "You are not a liar, baby girl." Jack pressed his palm against his eyes, felt the wetness there. "I know you're not. Then why doesn't anyone believe me?" "Because the Navy classified most of what I did. Because heroes don't get parades when their work happens in the dark in places the public never sees. Because the world doesn't care about the men who crawl into impossible spaces and do the things that keep ships afloat and reactors from melting down." But he couldn't say any of that to a 9-year-old. Sometimes the truth is hard for people to believe, especially when it sounds like a story. But you know what's real, Lily. And I know what's real. That's what matters. It's not fair. No, it's not. Ethan said you're not coming to the parent-teacher conference tomorrow. He said his mom said you never come because you're too busy cleaning up puke. Jack's grip tightened on the phone. I'll be there, Lily. I promise. 4 o'clock. You promise, promise. Promise, promise. It was their ritual from when she was little. A promise couldn't be broken. Not ever. Okay. Her voice was small again, trusting. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby girl. More than anything. Now get some sleep. I'll see you tomorrow. He hung up. For a long moment he just stood there in the maintenance closet surrounded by mops and buckets and cleaning supplies, holding a phone that still felt warm from his daughter's voice. Tomorrow, 4 o'clock. He would be there no matter what. 3:15 in the morning. Jack was finishing the second-floor corridor of Morrison Tower when the building shook. He stopped, set the mop against the wall, felt it through his feet through the tile, a vibration that didn't belong. 20 years in the Navy had taught him to read vibrations. Every ship had a heartbeat. Every structure had a rhythm. When that rhythm changed, something was broken. He sniffed the air. Faint. Almost nothing. But Jack had spent 16 years working around pressurized systems, fuel lines, gas mains, the kind of infrastructure that could kill you if you didn't respect it. Sweet, chemical, natural gas. His heart rate didn't spike. His breathing didn't change. The old training kicked in automatically. Calm, focused, methodical. He pulled out his radio. Security, this is Brennan in maintenance. I'm on second floor. Possible gas leak. Does anyone else smell that? Static. Then Derek's voice, trying to sound tough, failing. Mop guys at it again. Maybe you should stick to what you know, toilet cleaner. Laughter crackled through the channel. Jack ignored it. I'm serious. There's gas in this building. Someone needs to check the basement. I'll tell you what someone needs to check, Derek shot back. Your head for thinking you're anything more than hired help. Stay in your lane, Brennan. The radio went silent. Jack made a decision. He dropped the mop, moved toward the stairwell, pushed through the door and started descending. First floor. The smell intensified. Sub-level. The smell became a wall. His eyes watered immediately. The concentration was dangerous, potentially lethal. He'd smelled worse. On the Liberty after the explosion, the fuel oil had been so thick in the water it burned his skin. He'd welded through it anyway. This was nothing compared to that. This was just gas. The basement was a maze of pipes and ducts and mechanical systems. Jack moved through it quickly, following the sound. The hiss, the high-pitched whistle of pressurized gas escaping containment. He found the leak in the far corner, a main gas line, 6 inches in diameter. Carbon steel Schedule 40 pipe. A crack running 8 inches along a welded seam. Old repair work that had failed under pressure. Gas spraying out in a visible cloud, distorting the air like heat shimmer on summer asphalt. Jack assessed it the way he'd been trained. Pressure, flow rate, concentration levels, time to ignition threshold. The math was bad. Very bad. He pulled out his phone, called building security directly. A young voice answered, scared. Morrison Tower Security, this is Miller. This is Jack Brennan. Maintenance. I need full building evacuation now. Major gas leak in the basement. Main line rupture. Wait, what? Who authorized? 400 people are going to die if you don't start moving them out right now. Call the fire department. Call People's Gas. But get people out first. Do you understand? Silence. Then, yes, yes, sir. First time anyone in this building had called him that. How long until People's Gas can shut it down? More silence. Jack heard Miller talking to someone typing on a keyboard. They said 6 hours. They have to shut down the whole city block. 6 hours. Jack looked at the crack, at the gas concentration building in the enclosed space. The building would reach ignition threshold in less than 1 hour, maybe less than 30 minutes. One spark anywhere in the basement. One static discharge. One elevator motor cycling on. 400 people would die, including one janitor who had promised his daughter he'd be at her parent-teacher conference at 4 o'clock. Start the evacuation, Jack said. Get everyone out. He hung up. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. 3 men in work clothes burst through the basement door. Hard hats, tool belts, the emergency welding crew from Chicago Welding Services. The lead welder, Rodriguez, according to his name tag, saw the leak and stopped dead. Mother of God. His crew pulled up behind him, young guys mid-20s. Their faces went pale. Rodriguez approached the leak, slowly assessed it the way Jack had. His expression got worse with every second. "No chance," he said finally. "We can't touch this." "I know," Jack said. Rodriguez turned to him, noticed the janitor uniform for the first time. "Who the hell are you?" "Maintenance." "Maintenance." Rodriguez almost laughed. "Great. Well, maintenance unless you've got a magic wand. We're evacuating and waiting for people's gas." 6 hours, Jack said. "What? That's how long until they can shut it down." 6 hours. Rodriguez's face changed. He understood the math too. "Then we hope the building holds." "It won't." "Then 400 people are dead, and there's nothing we can do about it." Jack stepped forward. "I can seal it." Rodriguez stared at him. "You can what?" "I can weld that crack, hot, in the gas. 20 minutes, maybe less." Rodriguez looked at him like he was insane. "You're a janitor." "I was a welder. Navy. Deep sea salvage." "Navy?" Rodriguez's voice was flat, disbelieving. "Deep sea salvage. 16 years. I've sealed breaches under 300 feet of water. I've welded in fuel oil fires, in flooded compartments, in conditions that would kill most people in minutes." Jack met his eyes. "This isn't underwater, pal. This is a gas cloud. You strike an arc in that concentration, you ignite everything. The whole building goes up." "Not if I do it right." Rodriguez shook his head. "There is no right way. It can't be done. I've done it before. In a gas cloud. Worse than a gas cloud." Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. His eyes moved over Jack. The janitor uniform, the scars on his hands, the burns that marked 2 decades of working with fire and metal, the calm in his face that didn't match the situation. "Who are you?" Rodriguez asked again, different this time, like he was actually asking. "My name is Jack Brennan. September 2000, I was stationed at Norfolk Naval Station when the USS Liberty caught fire in dry dock. Explosion in the fuel storage, 40-foot hole in the hull, ship was burning, 17 sailors and dockyard workers dead, 39 wounded, 293 still alive and running out of time." Rodriguez's eyes widened. "I went into the flooded compartments alone, welded for 4 hours straight, underwater, in the dark, with fuel oil burning on the surface and the ship trying to tear itself apart around me. I sealed that breach, saved that ship, saved those people." Jack met his eyes. "That's who I am. Now give me your torch and get out of my way." Rodriguez didn't move for a long moment. His crew exchanged glances. The crazy janitor was claiming to be the Liberty welder, the legend, the man they taught about in every Navy welding course, the one who'd invented techniques that were still being used 2 decades later. "If you're lying," Rodriguez said slowly, "you're going to kill everyone in this building, including yourself." "I'm not lying. The Liberty welder is supposed to be dead or retired. I'm 42 years old. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment on the south side with my 9-year-old daughter. I push a mop for $12.50 an hour because the Navy broke my body and nobody else would hire me." Jack's voice didn't waver. "But my hands still work. My training still works. And I can do this." Rodriguez studied him, looked at his hands, the scars, the burns, the calluses that told the story of a lifetime working with fire and metal. "Jesus Christ," Rodriguez breathed. "You're really him. I'm really him. And you're working as a janitor. It's honest work." Rodriguez almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Okay, Brennan. Okay." He turned to his crew. "Get the fan, industrial, the big Dayton from the maintenance closet, and wet towels, everyone you can find." The crew ran. Rodriguez walked to his welding cart, started checking equipment. I'm not going to pretend I understand how you're going to do this, but if anyone can, I guess it's you. You believe me. I believe your hands. They don't lie. Rodriguez looked at him. The way you hold yourself, the way you assess that leak, that's not a janitor. That's a master welder. The crew returned with a fan and towels. Jack positioned the Dayton industrial fan to create an air current pushing the gas cloud back slightly. Not clearing it, that was impossible, but creating a small pocket of slightly cleaner air near the pipe. He draped wet towels over the surrounding pipes. Heat sinks, moisture barriers. The technique he'd developed in the Gulf of Mexico on that submarine repair when he couldn't flood the compartment and had to weld with radioactive coolant leaking 3 feet away. That technique, Rodriguez said, watching. I've never seen that. I invented it. And you survived. Obviously. Jack pulled on welding gloves, checked the Miller electric torch, adjusted the oxygen mix. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, muscle memory from 10,000 repairs. Everyone out, he said. Now. Rodriguez hesitated. You need a ground man, someone to... If I pass out, the torch ignites the gas and we all die anyway. No point in 2 people dying. Jack looked at him. Get your crew out. Get everyone out. Clear the building. Brennan. I have a daughter, 9 years old. I promised her I'd be at her school tomorrow at 4 o'clock. A promise. Can't be broken. Jack's voice was steady. I'm going to seal this leak, walk out of this basement, and make that conference. Understand? Rodriguez nodded slowly. Good luck, Jack Brennan. I don't need luck. I need everyone out of this basement in the next 60 seconds. Rodriguez gathered his crew. They headed for the stairs. At the door, Rodriguez turned back. Hey, Brennan. Jack looked up. When this is over, I want the whole story. All of it. Every repair you ever made. Jack almost smiled. When this is over, I'll buy you a beer. Rodriguez disappeared up the stairs. The basement door clanged shut. Jack heard the lock engage from outside. Containment protocol. He was alone now. Alone with a gas leak and a welding torch and 400 lives depending on what happened in the next 20 minutes. He thought about Lily, her torn photograph, her voice on the phone. You are a hero, Daddy. You are. Jack picked up the torch. Yeah, baby girl, he whispered to the empty basement. I am. He sparked the flame. Blue fire erupted inches from a cloud of death, and Jack Brennan, the mop guy, went to work. The flame touched metal, and Jack's world narrowed to a single point of light. Everything else disappeared. The hiss of escaping gas, the smell burning his nostrils, the knowledge that one mistake would turn this basement into a crematorium. All of it faded into background noise. There was only the puddle, the molten metal forming under his torch, the wire feeding through his left hand. The crack sealing millimeter by millimeter, 2 inches down, 6 to go. His hands moved in small, precise circles, the same motion he'd made 10,000 times before, on ships, on submarines, under hundreds of feet of black water where sunlight never reached. The gas cloud pressed against him like a living thing. Hungry. Waiting. Jack had learned a long time ago that fear was useless. Fear made your hands shake. Fear made you rush. Fear got people killed. So he didn't feel fear. He felt focus. Pure. Absolute. Trained focus. 3 inches sealed. The radio on his belt crackled. Rodriguez's voice, distant, filtered through static. Brennan, you copy? What's your status? Jack didn't stop working. Couldn't stop. But he answered, working, 3 inches done, 5 to go. Building's almost clear. Chicago Fire setting up a perimeter. They want to know your timeline. 15 minutes, maybe less. They're saying we should pull you out. Wait for People's Gas. People's Gas gets here, there won't be a building left to save. Silence on the radio. Then Rodriguez again, quieter. Copy that. We're praying for you out here, Brennan. Jack almost laughed. He hadn't prayed in years, not since Sarah left, not since he'd realized that God didn't answer prayers from broken men in one-bedroom apartments on the South Side. But maybe Rodriguez's prayers would work better than his. 4 inches sealed. The torch flame danced blue and hot and beautiful in a terrible way. Jack watched the metal flow, watched the crack close, watched his own hands doing impossible things. He'd always had good hands, even as a kid, before the Navy, before everything. His father had noticed first. "You've got welder's hands, son. Steady, patient. The kind of hands that can fix what's broken." His father had been a shipyard worker, 30 years building vessels for the Navy in Newport News. He'd died of lung cancer when Jack was 19, 3 months before Jack enlisted. "Make me proud," his father had said at the end, oxygen mask fogging with each shallow breath. "Do something that matters." Jack had tried. God, he'd tried. 5 inches sealed, 3 to go. The fan coughed. Jack's focus shattered. He glanced at the Dayton industrial fan, still spinning, still pushing air. But the motor was making a sound it shouldn't make. A whine. A strain. It had been running at maximum for 12 minutes. It wasn't designed for this kind of sustained use. "Come on," Jack muttered. "Hold together just a little longer." The fan coughed again. The blades stuttered. Jack turned back to his work. Faster now. Not rushed, never rushed, but faster. The wire fed. The puddle moved. The crack closed. 6 inches sealed. 2 to go. The fan died. The motor seized with a grinding shriek. The blades coasted to a stop. The air current that had been pushing the gas back vanished. And the cloud expanded. It surrounded Jack like fog rolling in off Lake Michigan. Thick, invisible, lethal. The concentration spiked from dangerous to unsurvivable. He was welding in pure gas now. The radio crackled. Rodriguez's voice. Urgent. "Brennan, Brennan, the sensors are going crazy up here. The gas concentration in the basement just tripled." "What happened?" "Fan died." "Get out of there now. The whole basement is a bomb." 2 inches left." "Forget the 2 inches. You're going to die." Jack kept working. "Brennan, do you hear me? Abort. Get out." "Can't." "What do you mean you can't?" "If I stop now, I have to start over. Starting over means more time. More time means explosion." Jack's voice was calm, steady, the way it had always been in emergencies. "The only way out is through." "That's insane." "Probably." "Brennan. Rodriguez. I need you to do something for me." Silence on the radio. "If I don't make it out of here, I need you to find my daughter, Lily Brennan. She's 9 years old, goes to Jefferson Elementary in the suburbs." Jack paused. The gas was making his head swim. "Tell her that her daddy wasn't a liar. Tell her everything she said about me was true. Tell her I'm sorry I couldn't make it to her conference." Rodriguez's voice cracked. "Brennan, don't talk like that. You're going to make it." "I'm going to try. But if I don't, promise me." "I promise." "Thank you." Jack turned back to the crack. 7 inches sealed. 1 to go. His lungs were burning now. Each breath felt like inhaling fire. The gas was everywhere. In his nose, his throat, his chest. His body was screaming for oxygen that wasn't there. His vision blurred at the edges. Tunnel vision. His brain starting to shut down from hypoxia, but his hands kept moving. Muscle memory. 16 years of training. 10,000 hours of practice. His hands knew what to do even when his mind was fading. The torch flame flickered. Jack glanced at the gauge. The oxygen tank was running low. Maybe 30 seconds of burn time left. 30 seconds to seal the last inch. He could do this. He had to do this. Lily was waiting for him. Jack took one last breath. Held it. The last semi-clean air he would get. Then he leaned into the work. The torch moved faster now. Not careful. No time for careful. But precise. Still precise. His hands refused to be anything but precise. 20 seconds left. The wire fed. The puddle flowed. The crack narrowed. 15 seconds. His lungs screamed. His chest felt like it was being crushed. His heart pounded erratically. Too fast. Then too slow. Then too fast again. 10 seconds. His vision was almost gone. Just a tiny circle of light where the weld was forming. Everything else was darkness. 5 seconds. The crack closed. The last millimeter of metal fused together. The weld completed. The gas stopped hissing. Jack dropped the torch. It clattered against the concrete floor. Empty. Useless. He tried to stand. His legs buckled. He fell backward, hit the ground hard. The back of his head cracked against concrete. Pain. Distant. Unimportant. He tried to breathe. Nothing but gas. His lungs convulsed, rejecting the poison. His heart stuttered, stopped, started again. Weak, failing. The darkness closed in. Lily, he thought. I'm sorry, baby girl. I tried. Then everything went black. The basement door exploded inward. Footsteps thundered down the stairs, voices shouting, hands grabbing him, pulling him up, dragging him across the floor. Jack felt himself being lifted, carried. The stairs passed in a blur of motion and noise. Fresh air hit his face like a slap. His lungs convulsed again, but this time they found oxygen. Real oxygen. His chest heaved. He coughed. Violent, painful coughs that felt like they were tearing him apart from the inside. He's alive. Get the medics. More hands. More voices. Someone pressed an oxygen mask over his face. Someone else was taking his pulse. Jack opened his eyes. Fluorescent lights. White ceiling tiles. The lobby of Morrison Tower. He was alive. Rodriguez's face appeared above him, tears streaming down his cheeks. You crazy son of a... His voice broke. You did it. You actually did it. Jack tried to speak, coughed instead. Blood flecked his lips. Don't talk. The medics are here. You're going to be okay. Jack grabbed Rodriguez's arm, pulled him closer. The weld, he rasped. Did it hold? Rodriguez laughed, a wild, disbelieving laugh. Did it hold, Brennan? It's perfect. I checked it myself. That's the cleanest emergency repair I've ever seen in my life. The People's Gas Inspector said it's better than their original installation. Jack let his head fall back against the floor. Perfect. The weld was perfect. 400 people were alive because a janitor knew how to weld. The paramedics swarmed around him. IV lines, blood pressure cuffs, pulse oximeters. They worked with efficient urgency, speaking in medical shorthand that Jack barely understood. BP's low, pulse is thready, signs of severe hypoxia. We need to transport now. They lifted him onto a stretcher, started moving toward the lobby doors. Wait. Jack's voice was weak, barely audible. The medics paused. My phone. My phone was in my pocket. I need it. One of the medics checked, found the phone, handed it to him. Jack fumbled with the screen. His hands were shaking now. The steady hands that had never shaken during the repair were finally betraying him. He found Lily's number. Pressed call. It rang once, twice. Daddy, her voice, sleepy, confused. It was 4 a.m. He'd woken her up. Hey, baby girl. Daddy, what's wrong? Why are you calling so late? I just wanted to hear your voice. Jack felt tears streaming down his face. I wanted to tell you I love you. I love you too, Daddy. Are you okay? You sound funny. I'm okay, sweetheart. I'm okay now. I'll see you tomorrow. All right? At your conference. 4 o'clock. You promise, promise? I promise, promise. Okay, Daddy. Good night. Good night, baby girl. He hung up. The medics started moving again, through the lobby doors, into the cold Chicago night air. Red and blue lights flashing everywhere. Fire trucks, ambulances, police cars, and people. Hundreds of people standing on the sidewalk behind barricades wrapped in blankets, staring at the building they'd just been evacuated from. 400 people who were alive because of him. As the medics loaded him into the ambulance, Jack heard whispers spreading through the crowd. Who is that? They're saying he sealed the leak, by himself, in that gas. That's impossible. Well, somebody did it. One of the security guards, Miller, the young one who'd taken Jack's call, pushed through to the ambulance. Mr. Brennan, is that you? Jack looked at him. You did this? You actually went down there and sealed it? Jack nodded weakly. But you're just the... Miller stopped himself, his face flushing with shame. I mean, I thought you were... The mop guy. Jack finished for him. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Derek always said you were nothing, but you're not. Jesus, you saved our lives. All of us. The medic gently pushed Miller back. Sir, we need to transport. Miller nodded, but he didn't move away. Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Thank you. The ambulance doors closed. Jack lay on the stretcher, oxygen mask on his face, IV in his arm, the ceiling lights blurring above him. He thought about Derek Richardson, the torn photo, the smirk. He thought about Lily, her voice on the phone, her faith in him. He thought about Sarah walking out the door 2 years ago saying she'd married a hero but got a broken man instead. He wasn't broken anymore. Maybe he never had been. The ambulance started moving, sirens wailing, racing through the empty streets of Chicago toward Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Jack closed his eyes. For the first time in 2 years, he slept without nightmares. The hospital was chaos. Nurses rushing, doctors shouting orders, machines beeping. Jack drifted in and out of consciousness, aware of movement around him, but unable to focus on any of it. They ran tests, drew blood, x-rayed his chest, pumped him full of fluids and oxygen and medications he couldn't pronounce. At some point, a doctor appeared at his bedside. Young guy couldn't have been more than 30. His face was serious. Mr. Brennan, I'm Dr. Patterson. How are you feeling? Like I swallowed a fire. That's consistent with what we're seeing. You have significant damage to your respiratory system from gas inhalation. Your blood oxygen levels were dangerously low when you arrived. Frankly, you should be dead. Heard that before? Dr. Patterson looked at his chart. Your file says you're a former Navy diver, deep-sea welding. Yeah, that explains some of what I'm seeing. Your lung capacity is exceptional, better than most people half your age. Your body has adapted to working in low-oxygen environments. That's probably why you survived. Jack almost smiled. So the Navy didn't break me completely. Apparently not. Dr. Patterson sat down. We're going to keep you overnight for observation. Maybe longer depending on how your lungs respond, but I think you're going to be okay. I have somewhere I need to be tomorrow, 4 o'clock. Mr. Brennan, my daughter has a parent-teacher conference. I promised I'd be there. Dr. Patterson hesitated. We'll see how you're doing in the morning. Right now, you need rest. Jack wanted to argue, but his body was already surrendering to exhaustion. The adrenaline had worn off. The reality of what he'd done, what he'd survived, was catching up with him. He closed his eyes again. The last thing he heard before sleep took him was Dr. Patterson's voice talking to someone in the hallway. I don't know who that man is, but he's either the luckiest person I've ever treated or the toughest. Maybe both. Jack woke to sunlight streaming through the hospital window. For a moment he didn't know where he was. The white walls, the beeping monitors, the IV in his arm. Then it all came back. The basement, the gas, the weld. He turned his head. A man sat in the chair beside his bed. 60 years old, maybe. Silver hair, rigid posture, wearing a Navy dress uniform with 2 stars on the shoulders. A rear admiral. The man was watching him with an expression Jack couldn't read. Good morning, Chief Petty Officer Brennan. Jack stared at him. Do I know you, sir? We've never met, but I know you. The admiral stood, extended his hand. I'm Rear Admiral Thomas Hayes, Commanding Officer, Naval Special Warfare Command. Jack shook his hand weakly. Sir, I've been out of the Navy for 3 years. I'm not sure why. I know exactly how long you've been out, Brennan. I also know why. Hayes sat back down. I've read your entire service record, 3 times now since last night. Last night. The gas leak, your repair. Word travels fast in the Navy community, especially when one of our own does something remarkable. Jack said nothing. The Chicago firefighters who pulled you out of that basement called it impossible. The welding crew said it couldn't be done. The People's Gas engineers are still trying to figure out how you did it. Hayes leaned forward. But I knew it was possible, because I'd read about you doing impossible things before. Jack's breath caught. 26 years ago, I was a young lieutenant. fresh out of the academy, stationed at Norfolk Naval Station. Hayes paused. I was there, Brennan, September 2000. I was at the dry dock when the Liberty caught fire. Jack closed his eyes. I remember the explosion, the chaos, the water rushing in, the smoke so thick you couldn't see 3 feet in front of you. I remember thinking we were all going to die. Hayes's voice was steady, but his eyes were distant. And then someone said a welder was going down into the flooded compartments, into the darkness, by himself. I didn't see you that day. I was on the upper decks helping with the wounded, but I heard about what you did. Everyone heard. The man who sealed the breach that couldn't be sealed. The man who saved 293 people. Jack's jaw tightened. I was just doing my job. No, you were doing something extraordinary. Hayes stood, walked to the window. After that day, I made it my mission to track your career. Every repair you made, every impossible situation you survived. I watched you become the best deep-sea welder the Navy ever produced. He turned back. And then I watched you wash out. Jack flinched. You didn't wash out, Brennan. Your body gave out. There's a difference. Doesn't feel like a difference. I know. Hayes walked back to the bed. I also know what happened after. The medical discharge, the divorce, the PTSD, the job applications that went nowhere because civilian companies don't know what to do with a hero who can't dive anymore. You've done your research. I've done more than research. I've been looking for you for 2 years. Jack met his eyes. Why? Hayes pulled something from his pocket. A business card. He set it on Jack's bedside table. Because the Navy needs you, Brennan. Not as a diver, as an instructor. We have a whole new generation of welders who need to learn what you know. The techniques, the improvisation, the ability to do impossible things when the manual says it can't be done. Jack looked at the card. I'm a janitor, sir. I clean toilets and mop floors. You're a hero who's been hiding in plain sight. And last night you proved that the skills that made you legendary haven't gone anywhere. Hayes moved toward the door. I'm not asking you to answer now. Think about it. Talk to your daughter. But when you're ready, call that number. The Navy wants you back, Brennan, on your terms. He reached the door, paused. One more thing. The building you saved last night. 412 people evacuated safely. Lawyers, security guards, cleaning crews. Every single one of them is alive because of you. Hayes looked back. That little girl of yours, the one who tells everyone her daddy's a hero. She wasn't lying, Brennan. She never was. Hayes left. Jack lay in the hospital bed holding the Admiral's card, watching the sunlight move across the ceiling. For 2 years, he'd believed he was finished, broken, used up. Maybe he'd been wrong. The door opened again. A nurse entered, checking his vitals. Mr. Brennan, you have more visitors. A lot more. There's a crowd in this waiting room. Firefighters mostly, and some men in construction clothes. They say they worked with you last night. The nurse smiled. Also about a dozen journalists. Everyone wants to talk to the man who saved 400 lives. Jack thought about Derek Richardson. The smirk. The torn photo. Your daughter's a liar. Just like her old man. He thought about the parent-teacher conference. 4 o'clock. What time is it? Almost noon. Marcus sat up. His chest protested, his lungs burned, but he pushed through it. I need to get out of here. Mr. Brennan, the doctor said, I know what the doctor said, but I made a promise to my daughter and I keep my promises. The nurse hesitated. Then she smiled again. Let me get Dr. Patterson. Dr. Patterson stood in the doorway with his arms crossed. This is against medical advice, Mr. Brennan. I want that on the record. Jack was already pulling on his shirt. The movement sent pain shooting through his chest, but he ignored it. He'd worked through worse pain before. Noted. Your lungs are damaged. You need rest. You need monitoring. You need at least another 24 hours of observation. What I need is to be at my daughter's school in 4 hours. Dr. Patterson sighed, walked into the room, closed the door behind him. Look, I get it. I have kids too. But you almost died last night. Your body has been through severe trauma. If you push yourself too hard... Doc. Jack turned to face him. 2 years ago I got discharged from the Navy. Medical. My lungs couldn't handle the pressure anymore. My body was broken. He pulled his jacket on, winced at the pain. I lost my career, my wife, my house, my savings, lost everything except my daughter. For 2 years I've been mopping floors and cleaning toilets, taking orders from punks half my age, getting called mop guy by people who wouldn't last 5 minutes doing what I used to do. Jack met the doctor's eyes. And every day I've told myself it's okay. It's honest work. It pays the bills. It lets me be there for Lily. But here's the thing. My little girl has been getting into fights at school because she tells people her daddy's a hero. She tells them the truth about what I did in the Navy, and they call her a liar. They make her feel ashamed of me. His voice cracked. Last night I did something that proved she was right, that I was everything she said I was, and there's a conference at her school in 4 hours where I can finally show everyone that Lily Brennan is not a liar. Jack picked up his phone, his wallet, the Admiral's card. So with all due respect, Dr. Patterson, I'm walking out of this hospital. You can sign a release form or you can call security. But either way, I'm going to be at Jefferson Elementary at 4 o'clock. Doctor. Patterson was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a prescription pad. I'm writing you a script for pain medication. Take one every 6 hours. No more. And I want you back here tomorrow morning for a follow-up. 9 a.m. Don't make me send someone to find you. Jack almost smiled. Yes, sir. And Brennan. Dr. Patterson extended his hand. What you did last night was incredible. Your daughter's lucky to have a father like you. Jack shook his hand. I'm the lucky one. He walked out of the hospital room, down the hallway, past nurses and doctors who stopped to stare at him. The elevator doors opened. Jack stepped inside. A woman was already there, 40s, well-dressed, expensive jewelry. She looked at him, his rumpled clothes, his pale face, the hospital bracelet still on his wrist. Excuse me, are you the man from the news? The one who saved all those people? Jack pressed the button for the ground floor. I don't know what you mean. It's all over the television. The gas leak downtown. They're saying a janitor sealed the pipe by himself. In a cloud of gas. They're calling it a miracle. The elevator descended. Some people are saying it's fake, that it couldn't have happened, that no one could weld in those conditions. The woman studied his face. But looking at you, you look like someone who's been through something terrible. The doors opened. Jack stepped out. It wasn't a miracle. It was just training. He walked through the lobby, into the afternoon sun. The hospital was swarming with reporters, cameras, microphones, news vans with satellite dishes on top. They were clustered around the main entrance waiting. Jack spotted them and stopped. He couldn't deal with this. Not now. He had somewhere to be. A hand touched his shoulder. He spun around. Rodriguez was standing there still wearing his work clothes from last night. His eyes were red-rimmed like he hadn't slept. Brennan, Jesus, you're actually up and walking. I've got somewhere to be. I know. The school. Your daughter. Rodriguez held up a set of car keys. That's why I'm here. Figured you might need a ride. Jack stared at him. You waited here all night. Half my crew did too. They wanted to meet the man who did the impossible. Rodriguez nodded toward the parking lot. Cars this way. We can avoid the reporters if we go through the side exit. They walked together. Fast. Quiet. Avoiding the camera crews. Rodriguez's truck was parked in a loading zone. He unlocked it, and they both climbed in. Jefferson Elementary, right? How do you know that? You told me last night. Remember, when you asked me to find your daughter if you didn't make it out? Rodriguez started the engine. Jack had forgotten. The gas. The hypoxia. Parts of the night were fuzzy now. I've been thinking about that all night. About how you went down into that basement knowing you might die. And your biggest worry was that your little girl would never know the truth about you. Rodriguez pulled out of the parking lot. They drove in silence for a while. The city looked normal. Cars, pedestrians, traffic lights, like nothing had happened. "What time is it?" 2:30. We've got time." Jack watched the streets pass. Chicago in daylight, familiar and strange at the same time. "I need to stop somewhere first." "Where?" "My apartment. I can't show up to my daughter's school looking like this." Rodriguez glanced at him, took in the wrinkled shirt, the hospital bracelet, the pale skin. "Yeah, okay. Good call." The apartment building was nothing special. 3 stories, faded brick, a parking lot with cracks in the asphalt. Jack had lived here for 18 months, ever since the last of his savings ran out. Rodriguez pulled into a spot near the entrance. "I'll wait here." Jack nodded, climbed out, made his way up the stairs to the 2nd floor, unlocked his door, stepped inside. The apartment was small. 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. Lily's drawings covered the refrigerator, crayon pictures of submarines, of divers, of a stick figure with the word "Daddy" written underneath. He'd never realized how sad this place looked until now. Jack showered quickly. The hot water stung his skin, made his damaged lungs ache, but it felt good to be clean. He shaved, put on his best clothes, khaki pants, a blue button-down shirt, his one good pair of shoes. He looked at himself in the mirror. 42 years old, gray already showing at his temples, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 5 years ago, hands scarred from a lifetime of working with fire and metal. He didn't look like a hero. He looked like what he was, a tired single father who'd been through too much. But today, that would be enough. He grabbed his wallet, his phone, his keys. Paused at the door. On the shelf by the entrance was a small wooden box. He'd brought it with him from his old life, the only thing he'd kept when Sarah took everything else. He opened it. Inside were his medals: the Navy Cross, the Silver Star, 3 Bronze Stars, the Combat Action Ribbon, the unit citations and commendations that documented 16 years of extraordinary service. He'd never shown them to Lily, never talked about what they meant. He'd wanted to protect her from that world, from the knowledge of how close her father had come to dying so many times. But maybe that had been a mistake. Maybe she'd needed to see them all along. He took the box, walked out the door. Rodriguez was leaning against his truck, scrolling through his phone. He looked up when Jack approached. "Whoa, you clean up nice. Thanks for waiting." "No problem." Rodriguez held up his phone. "You should see this. You're famous, Brennan. The news vans are everywhere. They don't have your name yet, building management isn't releasing it, but everyone's talking about the hero Janitor." Jack handed the box to Rodriguez while he climbed into the truck. "What's this?" "My past." They drove toward the suburbs. The city gave way to residential neighborhoods, tree-lined streets, houses with yards. "Can I ask you something?" Rodriguez said eventually. "Sure." "Last night when you told me about the Liberty, about saving those people at Norfolk, why didn't you ever tell anyone? Why hide it? Why work as a janitor when you could have been consulting, teaching, making real money?" Jack was quiet for a moment. "You ever hear of survivor's guilt?" "Yeah." "When the Liberty caught fire, 17 people died, sailors and dockyard workers. Most of them were just kids. They never got to go home." Jack stared out the window. "I spent 4 hours in those flooded compartments welding, and the whole time I could hear things bumping against me in the dark. Bodies. I told myself it was debris, just debris." His voice dropped. "It wasn't debris." Rodriguez said nothing. "I saved 293 people that day, but I couldn't save those 17. And every time someone called me a hero, every time they gave me another medal, all I could think about was the ones I didn't save. The ones who floated past me in the dark while I was welding. After I got discharged, I didn't want to be a hero anymore. I just wanted to be invisible, to do simple work that didn't matter, that didn't have life and death attached to it." Jack turned to Rodriguez. "I thought if I could just be ordinary, maybe the guilt would stop." "Did it?" "No, it never stops. You just learn to carry it." Rodriguez pulled up to a red light. For what it's worth, what you did last night wasn't about guilt or survival or any of that. It was about 400 people who got to go home to their families because you refused to give up. He looked at Jack. That includes me, Brennan. I was in that basement when you told me to get out. If you hadn't sealed that leak, I'd be dead right now. The light turned green. So thank you. Not as a welder, not as a colleague, as a father who gets to see his kids again because of you. Jack didn't trust himself to speak. He nodded. They drove the rest of the way in silence. Jefferson Elementary looked exactly like Jack remembered. Red brick, white trim, an American flag hanging limp in the windless afternoon. Parents were pulling into the parking lot heading for the conferences. Rodriguez stopped at the entrance. You want me to wait? No, you've done enough. Hey, you promised me a beer and your whole story. I'm going to collect on that. You will. Jack climbed out, straightened his shirt, tucked the wooden box under his arm. He walked toward the entrance. The hallways smelled like chalk and hand sanitizer. Construction paper artwork lined the walls. Jack followed the signs to room 217, Mrs. Patterson's second-grade class. Parents were gathered in the hallway outside. Mothers in yoga pants, fathers in business casual. They chatted and laughed and checked their phones. No one noticed Jack. He was used to that. He found the door to room 217 and looked through the window. Lily was sitting at a desk near the front. Her head was down. She looked small, alone. Across from her sat Mrs. Patterson, a gray-haired woman with reading glasses perched on her nose. She was talking, gesturing, but Jack couldn't hear what she was saying. He opened the door. Everyone looked up. Mr. Brennan? Mrs. Patterson rose from her desk. We weren't sure you were going to make it. I said I would be here. Lily's head snapped up. Her eyes went wide, disbelieving. Daddy! She launched herself out of the chair and ran to him, hit him like a small torpedo, wrapping her arms around his waist. Jack knelt down, ignoring the pain in his chest, and held her tight. You came. You really came. I promised, didn't I? Lily pulled back, looked at his face. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying. Hey, what's wrong? Nothing. Nothing's wrong now. She hugged him again. Jack stood, kept his arm around Lily's shoulder. They walked to the desk together. Mr. Brennan, if you'd like to take a seat, we can begin. Before Jack could respond, Mrs. Patterson continued, I should mention that there's been an incident. A boy named Ethan Mitchell has been spreading rumors about Lily, calling her a liar, saying that her claims about you aren't true. I'm not a liar, Lily said fiercely. I know, sweetheart. Jack squeezed her shoulder. He looked at Mrs. Patterson. What kind of claims? Mrs. Patterson shifted uncomfortably. Lily has been telling the other children that you were a Navy welder, that you saved hundreds of people on a ship at Norfolk, that you're a hero. She paused. The other children have been skeptical. Ethan's father looked you up online and couldn't find anything. He's been telling people that Lily is making up stories. Jack felt Lily tense beside him. I'm not making it up. Tell her, Daddy. Tell her it's true. Jack looked at his daughter, her fierce eyes, her trembling lip. She believed in him so completely, so absolutely. He set the wooden box on Mrs. Patterson's desk. What's this? Proof. He opened the lid. Mrs. Patterson's eyes went wide. She reached out, touched the Navy cross with trembling fingers, read the citation attached to it. This says you sealed a hull breach on the USS Liberty, under fire, in flooded compartments. That you saved, she looked up at him, 293 people. Yes, ma'am. And this silver star, it says you prevented a nuclear submarine from catastrophic failure in the Gulf of Mexico. Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Patterson sat back in her chair. Her hand was shaking. Mr. Brennan, why didn't you tell us? When Lily was getting in trouble for telling these stories, why didn't you just show us this? Jack looked at Lily. Because I wanted my daughter to have a normal life. I didn't want her to grow up in the shadow of what I did. I thought if I could just be a regular dad with a regular job, she could just be a regular kid. He knelt down in front of Lily. "But I was wrong, baby girl. You were never ashamed of me. You were proud, and I should have let you be proud instead of hiding who I was." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "So I'm not a liar?" "No, sweetheart. You never were. Everything you told them about me was true. Every single word." She threw her arms around his neck, buried her face in his shoulder. "I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby girl. More than anything." The classroom door opened. A man walked in. Tall, expensive suit, irritated expression. Behind him was a boy about Lily's age with a bandage on his nose. Mrs. Patterson stood. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm sorry you're late. Ethan had a—" The man stopped. Noticed Jack. His eyes narrowed. "You must be Brennan, the janitor." Jack stood up, kept Lily behind him. "That's right. I'm Robert Mitchell, Ethan's father." The man's voice dripped condescension. "I've been wanting to meet you. My son came home with a broken nose because your daughter attacked him. Your son called my daughter a liar. Because she is a liar." Mitchell stepped closer, his polished shoes clicking on the classroom floor. "She's been telling the whole school that her daddy's some kind of war hero. Meanwhile, you're pushing a mop for minimum wage. I looked you up, Brennan. There's nothing online about you. No records, no news articles, nothing." He gestured at Lily. "Your daughter made the whole thing up, and when Ethan called her on it, she assaulted him." Mrs. Patterson stood up. "Mr. Mitchell, I think you should see this." She gestured to the box on her desk, the medals gleaming under the classroom lights. Mitchell glanced at it, froze. His face went pale. What is this?" "These are Mr. Brennan's service medals, Navy Cross, Silver Star, Bronze Stars, citations for valor from 3 separate operations." Mrs. Patterson's voice was cold. "It appears your son has been bullying a little girl for telling the truth." Mitchell stared at the medals, at Jack, back at the medals. That's not possible. I searched online. There was nothing. Most of what I did was classified. Submarine operations, sensitive repairs, the kind of work that doesn't show up on Google." Jack's voice was quiet but firm. Mitchell's face went red. "Well, that doesn't excuse your daughter breaking my son's nose." "You're right. It doesn't." Jack looked at Lily. "Sweetheart, you shouldn't have hit Ethan. Even when someone is being cruel, violence isn't the answer." Lily looked at the floor. "I know, Daddy. I'm sorry." Jack turned back to Mitchell. "But maybe your son should learn that calling someone a liar has consequences, especially when that someone is telling the truth." Mitchell opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. The classroom door banged open. 2 men walked in. One of them was Rodriguez. The other was a stranger, middle-aged, wearing a Chicago Fire Department uniform. "Sorry to interrupt." Rodriguez held up his phone. "But I thought you might want to see this." The screen showed a news broadcast, a reporter standing in front of Morrison Tower. "We're confirming now that the hero who saved over 400 lives in last night's gas emergency has been identified. His name is Jack Brennan, a 42-year-old Navy veteran who was working as a janitor in the building." The room went silent. "Authorities are calling his actions nothing short of miraculous. Welding a pressurized gas line in a cloud of pure methane, our own engineers say it's impossible." Mitchell stared at the screen. His jaw dropped. That's you." The fire department official stepped forward. "Mr. Brennan, I'm Battalion Chief Morrison. I was the incident commander last night." He extended his hand. "I wanted to thank you personally. What you did in that basement was the most extraordinary act of bravery I've witnessed in 32 years of service." Jack shook his hand. "I was just doing what needed to be done, sir." "Sir, you welded a pressurized gas line in a cloud of pure methane. That's not what needed to be done. That's impossible, except you did it." Morrison looked at Lily. "Young lady, your father is a genuine American hero. What he did last night will be studied in firehouses for decades. You should be very, very proud of him." Lily looked up at Jack. Her face was glowing. "I already was." Mitchell backed toward the door. His son followed head down. We should go. I have a meeting." No one tried to stop him. After he left, Mrs. Patterson let out a long breath. "Well, that was unexpected." She looked at Jack. "Mr. Brennan, I owe you an apology. I should have believed Lily from the beginning. I should have asked more questions instead of assuming. You didn't know. Still, she's been struggling all semester and I could have helped her if I'd just listened." Mrs. Patterson straightened her papers. "Going forward, I think things will be different. For both of you." Jack nodded. Lily tugged on his hand. "Daddy, does this mean I can tell people the truth now, about the submarines and the Liberty and everything?" Jack looked at her, his fierce, stubborn, wonderful daughter. "Yeah, baby girl, you can tell them everything." She hugged him again. For the first time in 2 years, Jack Brennan felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The news vans were waiting outside Jefferson Elementary. 3 vans, maybe 4, reporters with microphones, cameramen adjusting their equipment, all of them pointed at the entrance like wolves watching a rabbit hole. "Daddy, why are there TV people here?" Lily pressed against his side, her hand gripping his. "They want to talk to me about what happened last night." "Are you going to be on TV?" Jack watched the reporters. One of them spotted movement through the window and pointed. The cameras swung toward the door. "I don't think I have a choice." Rodriguez appeared beside him. "I can pull my truck around back. There's a service entrance by the cafeteria. We can get you out without—" "No." Jack squeezed Lily's hand. "I spent 2 years hiding, running from who I was, letting people think I was nothing but a mop guy because it was easier than facing the truth." He looked down at his daughter. "That ends today." He pushed open the door. The reporters swarmed. "Mr. Brennan? Mr. Brennan, can you tell us about last night? Is it true you sealed the gas leak by yourself? How did you survive the gas exposure? What's your reaction to being called a hero?" Jack walked through them. Lily tucked against his side. He didn't stop, didn't answer. The questions blurred together into noise. A woman stepped directly into his path, blonde, professional, holding a microphone with a WGN News logo on it. "Mr. Brennan, I'm Jennifer Walsh from WGN. The whole city wants to know your story. Can you give us just 5 minutes?" Jack stopped. He looked at Jennifer Walsh, at her camera crew, at the dozen other reporters pressing in behind her. "You want my story?" "Yes, sir. The whole country is watching." Jack turned to face the cameras. "My name is Jack Brennan. I'm 42 years old. I'm a single father living on Chicago's South Side. For the past 3 years, I've worked as a janitor in a downtown office building, cleaning floors and scrubbing toilets for $12.50 an hour." The reporters fell silent. Microphones pressed closer. "Before that, I spent 20 years in the United States Navy as a deep-sea welder. I served on submarines. I did underwater salvage and repair work in conditions that would kill most people." Jack paused. "I have medals in a box at home that I never showed anyone because I didn't think they mattered anymore." His voice didn't waver. "Last night there was a gas leak in the building where I work. A main line ruptured. People's Gas said it would take 6 hours to shut it down. The building didn't have 6 hours, so I sealed the leak myself." "How?" someone shouted. "Training, experience, and the fact that 400 people were going to die if I didn't try." Jack's jaw tightened. "I almost died doing it. The ventilation fan failed halfway through. I finished the repair in pure gas with no oxygen. When they pulled me out, my heart had stopped twice." Gasps from the crowd. "But here's what I want you to understand." Jack pulled Lily closer. "This is my daughter Lily. She's 9 years old. For months she's been getting into fights at school because she told people the truth about her father. She told them I was a Navy welder, that I saved people on the USS Liberty at Norfolk, that I was a hero." His voice cracked. "And everyone called her a liar. Her classmates, their parents, even some of her teachers. They looked at me, the janitor, the mop guy, the nobody, and they assumed my little girl was making things up." He looked directly into the nearest camera. "She wasn't. Everything she said was true. Every single word. My daughter is not a liar. She never was. Jennifer Walsh's eyes were glistening. "Mr. Brennan, what do you want people to take away from your story?" Jack thought about it. About Derek Richardson. About Robert Mitchell. About every person who'd walked past him in that building for 3 years without seeing him. Don't judge people by their job title. The person mopping your floor might have medals in a box at home. The guy emptying your trash might have saved more lives than you'll ever know. He paused. Everyone has a story. Everyone has value. My daughter knew that before any of you did. He turned away from the cameras. That's all I have to say. He walked to Rodriguez's truck, Lily beside him, the reporters parting like water. Rodriguez was already behind the wheel, engine running. "That was something else, Brennan." Jack climbed in, helped Lily into the back seat. "Just take us home." The apartment felt different now. Jack stood in the doorway looking at the small space he'd called home for 18 months. The same cramped kitchen, the same second-hand furniture, the same drawings on the refrigerator. But something had changed. Or maybe he had changed. "Daddy, I'm hungry." Lily tugged at his sleeve. "Okay, baby girl, what do you want? Can we have pizza to celebrate? What are we celebrating? You being a hero on TV, and Ethan Mitchell being wrong, and everyone knowing I'm not a liar." She grinned up at him. "That's a lot of things to celebrate." "Yeah, I guess it is." He ordered pizza from Lou Malnati's. They sat on the couch together watching cartoons, eating deep dish slices and drinking soda. Normal father-daughter stuff. The kind of evening Jack had always wanted but never felt like he deserved. Around 7 o'clock his phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. "Hello. Mr. Brennan, this is Victoria Hayes, CEO of Morrison Properties." Jack sat up straighter. The woman who owned the building. His boss's boss's boss. "Mrs. Hayes, I didn't expect... I just saw the news. I had no idea about your service. About any of it." Her voice was thick with emotion. "I'm calling to apologize. The way Derek treated you. The things he said. I should have done more. I should have stopped it. You were the only one in that building who treated me like a person, Mrs. Hayes. You don't owe me any apology." "Marcus, I'm calling to tell you that Derek Richardson was fired this morning. Building management reviewed the security footage from last night. They saw him refusing to take your warning seriously. They saw him mocking you on the radio while the gas was spreading." Jack said nothing. "There's something else. The board is meeting tomorrow to discuss offering you a new position. Not janitor. Something in building operations. Management level. The salary would be..." "That's kind of them, but I think I'm done with that building." Silence on the line. "I understand. Whatever you decide, Marcus, thank you. For what you did. For all of us." She hung up. Jack set down the phone. Lily looked at him. "Who is that, Daddy?" "Someone from work." "Are you going back to work tomorrow?" Jack thought about it. The basement. The gas. The medals in the box. The Admiral's card in his pocket. "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe not to that job." "Good." Lily snuggled against him. "I didn't like that job. The people there were mean to you. Not all of them. Most of them." She had a point. They finished the pizza. Lily fell asleep against his shoulder during the third cartoon. Jack carried her to bed, tucked her in, sat beside her for a long time just watching her breathe. His little girl. The only thing he'd done right in his whole messed-up life. He went back to the living room, pulled out the Admiral's business card, looked at it in the lamplight. Rear Admiral Thomas Hayes, Naval Special Warfare Command. The Navy wanted him back, not as a diver, his body couldn't do that anymore, but as an instructor, a teacher, someone to pass on what he knew to the next generation. It was tempting, more than tempting, but it would mean changing everything, moving, traveling, time away from Lily. He'd sacrificed enough for the Navy, given them his lungs, his marriage, his best years. Did he have anything left to give? A knock at the door. Jack tensed. It was after 9. Nobody visited him at this hour. He crossed to the door, looked through the peephole. A man stood in the hallway. Young, late 20s, wearing a leather jacket. His face was familiar, but Jack couldn't place it. He opened the door. "Can I help you? Mr. Brennan?" The man extended his hand. "My name is James Patterson. My father was on the USS Liberty." Jack's breath caught. 26 years ago, my father was a petty officer, second class. He was in the dry dock when the fire hit. He would have burned if someone hadn't sealed the breach. James's eyes were wet. "Your father survived because of you. He's 67 now, retired, living in Florida. He's been watching you on the news all day." James reached into his jacket, pulled out an envelope. "He asked me to find you, to give you something. He wrote this for you. Said he's been wanting to say these things for 26 years but never knew how to find you." Jack took the envelope. His hands were trembling. "He also wanted me to tell you something in person." James's voice cracked. "He said that for 26 years he's thought about the man in the dark, the welder who went into those flooded compartments when everyone else was running the other way. He said you're the reason he got to see me grow up, the reason he got to walk me to my first day of school and my high school graduation and my wedding last year." Tears spilled down James's cheeks. "He said I exist because of you. My wife is pregnant, our first child. And that baby will exist because of you, too." Jack couldn't speak. The words were lodged in his throat. "My father wants to meet you, Mr. Brennan. He's flying up next week if you're willing. He says it's time he thanked you face to face." Jack wiped his eyes. "Tell your father I'd be honored." James nodded, shook his hand, walked away. Jack closed the door, leaned against it, slid down until he was sitting on the floor. He opened the envelope. The letter was handwritten, 3 pages. The handwriting was shaky, an old man's hand, but the words were clear. "Dear Welder, for 26 years I've called you that because I never knew your name. You were just a shadow in the darkness, a torch flame in the flood. But you were the most important shadow of my life." Jack read the whole letter. When he finished, he was sobbing, not from sadness, from something else, something he hadn't felt in years. For so long he'd focused on the 17 people who died at Norfolk, the ones he couldn't save, the bodies in the dark, the guilt that never went away. He'd forgotten about the 293 who lived, the families they'd built, the children they'd raised, the grandchildren who existed because a welder went into the dark and refused to come out until the job was done. His sacrifice hadn't been pointless. It had rippled outward through time, creating lives he'd never known about, touching futures he'd never imagined. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was more than enough. 3 months passed. Jack accepted Victoria Hayes's job offer, not as janitor, as director of building safety for Morrison Properties. Salary $85,000. Full benefits. Home every night. Admiral Hayes called twice. Both times Jack thanked him politely and said he'd made his decision. The Navy would have to train the next generation without him. He had a daughter who needed him here. Victoria turned out to be different than Jack expected. The cold CEO he'd met in the lobby that first night was a facade. Underneath was someone lonely, driven, brilliant, and kind. They worked together daily. Safety inspections, building upgrades, emergency protocols. One evening, Victoria invited him to dinner. "Business," she said, to discuss the new fire suppression system. It turned into something else. They talked about their pasts, their pain, their hopes. Victoria told him about her divorce, about her ex-husband Richard, who'd cheated with his assistant and was now trying to steal the company her father had built. Jack told her about Sarah, about the discharge, about the 2 years he'd spent invisible. "I've never met anyone like you." Victoria's voice was soft. "I was invisible for 2 years. To me, you're the only person I see." Their first kiss happened in the parking garage. Gentle, tentative, meaningful. 2 months later, Jack introduced Victoria to Lily. Lily was nervous. Is Daddy dating? Is that okay? Lily thought about it. Is she nice? Victoria appeared at the door carrying Lou Malnati's pizza. I hope I pass inspection. Lily studied her. The CEO in jeans and a sweater looking vulnerable and hopeful. Do you like submarines? I want to learn about them, from an expert. Victoria looked at Jack. Lily smiled. Okay, she can stay. The ceremony happened at Chicago City Hall 3 months after the gas leak. The mayor presented Jack with the Medal of Valor, the highest civilian honor the city could give. Jack stood at the podium, Lily and Victoria in the front row. 3 years ago, I lost everything. My career, my marriage, my identity. His voice carried through the packed chamber. I thought my life was over, that I'd been someone important and was now invisible. He paused. But my daughter never stopped seeing me, never stopped believing in me. Jack looked at Lily. The night I went into that basement, I wasn't thinking about medals or fame. I was thinking about keeping a promise to my daughter, about being the man she believed I was. He looked at Victoria. And I was thinking about the person who believed in me when she had no reason to. Victoria's eyes were wet. Heroes aren't born from medals. They're born from the choices we make when no one is watching. From the decision to do the right thing even when it's hard, even when it costs us everything. Jack stepped back from the podium. The crowd erupted in applause. 1 year later, Morrison Tower rooftop. Summer evening. Chicago skyline glittering in the distance. Jack stood with Rodriguez and Chief Morrison. BBQ smoke drifting. Employees and families mingling. Remember when you were just the janitor, Chief? Rodriguez grinned. I'm still a janitor, just with a fancier title. Morrison laughed. And a girlfriend who's a CEO. Jack looked across the rooftop. Victoria was talking with employees, animated, engaged. Different from the lonely woman he'd met in the lobby 2 years ago. Fiancée, actually. Rodriguez and Morrison froze. What? 2 weeks earlier, Jack had proposed, in the basement, the same place where he'd almost died. This is where I found my life again, where I found you. Victoria had cried, laughed. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Lily ran up breathless. Daddy, Victoria said we can get a dog. A dog. Victoria arrived smiling. I was outvoted 2-1. Jack pulled them both close. Democracy wins. Lily looked up at him. Are you happy, Daddy? Jack looked at his new family. At Victoria. At Lily. At the friends surrounding him. At the Chicago skyline. At the life he'd rebuilt from nothing. For 3 years he'd been invisible. He'd thought that's what he deserved. But his daughter had seen him when no one else could. She'd seen the truth. And the truth had set them both free. Yeah, baby girl. I'm happy. The sun set over Chicago. The city lights came on one by one, Willis Tower glowing in the distance, Navy Pier barely visible along Lake Michigan. Jack, Victoria, and Lily stood at the rooftop edge looking out over it all. Victoria leaned her head on Jack's shoulder. Lily held both their hands. Thank you, Jack's voice was barely above a whisper, for seeing me. The three of them stood together, a family, whole, happy. Chicago stretched out before them, a city of second chances, of redemption, of invisible people becoming visible. Jack Brennan had been a hero, then a janitor, then a hero again. But more than any of that, he was a father, a partner, a man who'd learned that dignity doesn't come from job titles or medals. It comes from how you treat people when no one is watching. It comes from keeping promises to the ones you love. It comes from refusing to give up even when the world tells you you're finished. The rooftop lights twinkled. Music played. Laughter echoed. Somewhere below in the basement of Morrison Tower, a perfect weld held a gas line together, a testament to impossible things done by ordinary people. Jack's phone buzzed. A text from James Patterson. Dad arrives tomorrow, 2 p.m. He can't wait to meet you. Jack smiled. 26 years. The man he'd saved was finally getting to say thank you. The ripples kept spreading, lives saved, families built, futures created, all because a welder went into the dark and refused to quit. Lily tugged his hand. "Daddy Rodriguez wants to know if you'll tell the story, about the liberty, about everything." Jack looked at the crowd, at the people who'd become his friends, his community. "Maybe later, baby girl." "Promise, promise." Jack knelt down, eye level with his daughter. "Promise, promise." She hugged him. Victoria joined them, the three of them holding each other as Chicago twinkled below. And for the first time in years, Jack Brennan felt like he was home. Not a place, not a building. Home was the people who saw you, who believed in you, who stood beside you when the world said you were nothing. Home was the family you built from broken pieces. Home was knowing that your worth wasn't measured in job titles or medals, but in the lives you touched and the promises you kept. The party continued around them, music and laughter and the smell of grilled food. Jack closed his eyes, breathed in the Chicago air. 3 years ago he'd been drowning, invisible, broken. Tonight he was standing on a rooftop with the two people who mattered most, looking out over a city that had given him a second chance. The mop guy was gone. Jack Brennan was finally truly home. Lily pulled away, ran back to join the other kids. Victoria took Jack's hand. "What are you thinking about?" "How lucky I am." "You earned this, all of it." "Maybe. But I couldn't have done it without you. Without Lily." Victoria squeezed his hand. "We're the lucky ones, Jack Brennan." The night deepened. Stars appeared above the city lights, barely visible, but there. Rodriguez approached with beers, handed one to Jack. "To the craziest welder I ever met." Jack raised his bottle. "To second chances." They drank. The Chicago skyline glittered. 400 people were alive because of what happened in a basement one night. Families intact, children sleeping safely, lives continuing. And somewhere in Florida, an old sailor was packing for a flight to Chicago, preparing to thank the shadow in the dark who'd given him 26 more years of life. The story wasn't over. It never would be. Because the best stories don't end. They ripple outward, touching lives in ways you never see, creating futures you never imagined. Jack Brennan had learned that the hard way, but he'd learned it, and that made all the difference. The party wound down. Families headed home. The rooftop emptied. Jack, Victoria, and Lily were the last to leave. They walked to the elevator together, Lily between them, holding both their hands. "Best day ever," Lily yawned. "Yeah," Jack smiled. "Best day ever." The elevator descended, past 40 floors of offices and lives and stories, down to the lobby where Jack had once pushed a mop at 2 in the morning, invisible and forgotten. The doors opened. They walked out into the Chicago night. Together. Home.